lovely person, and no, the title of this video is not clickbait. I really do see colors that aren't there. And I have several stories to tell about that in a second, but first I need to explain what I mean by it. It turns out that a lot of people experience the same phenomenon I do. And that phenomenon is called synesthesia. This basically means that when one of the senses in the brain is activated, another unrelated sense is also activated. This process is involuntary and can't be turned on or off, so it's just part of the way a synesthete experiences the world. It can come in all different types, but the most common, and the one that I have, is called grapheme-color synesthesia, which is where you associate each letter of the alphabet with a different color. And the colors are different for each person. So the letter A might be red in the mind of one person and blue in the mind of another, even if it's written on the page in black. But there are many other types of synesthesia. So some people might, for example, associate musical notes with shapes or textures with sounds. Now, I love having synesthesia. I think it's so cool and it literally adds color to my life. But there are definitely pros and cons to it. One of the pros is that it helps me remember things. I'd say that at least 98% of the time, I remember the color of a word before I remember the word itself, even if I think of them almost simultaneously. As you can imagine, this is incredibly useful, especially when I'm taking a test and can't remember a certain term. I'll almost always be able to remember the colors of a term, so based on that, I can usually figure out what the word I'm looking for is. I think synesthesia is also a big part of why I'm able to memorize things fairly quickly. But it's not all unicorns and rainbows. If the world around me doesn't line up with the color associations I involuntarily make in my head, then I'll get very confused and have trouble recognizing things for what they are, because to me they're just wrong. A really good example of this is Mel and Sue, the hosts of the Great British Bake Off. Sue has dark hair and Mel is blonde, but in my head the name Mel is a dark color and the name Sue is a light color. So when I'm watching them, I always get them confused because the color of their hair doesn't match up with the color of their name. Even as I'm telling you this, I am struggling to keep them straight in my head. This has also happened in my real life with someone I actually know. There was one particular girl that I had a lot of classes with, and she always wore the color purple. Now, I knew what her name was, and the color of her name was white, but because she always wore the color purple, I started associating her with that color, and my brain decided that she must have a purple name. Now, this did not mean that her name stayed the same in my head, but changed from white to purple. No. Instead, my brain randomly selected a different purple name for her, which happened to be Lauren. Now, her name was not Lauren, but every time I saw her, I would think of her as Lauren. Thankfully, I never called her the wrong name to her face, but I would constantly have to remind myself of her actual name, even though I 100% knew what it was. But in my brain, it was the wrong color, so I just gave her a new name that was the right one. The last example I have for you of how synesthesia can mess with my head is a very recent one. As you may have noticed, my background has changed, and that is because I just moved back to school for the fall. I just finished my first week of classes, and one of those classes is Latin. One of the things I noticed about the Latin textbook I'm using this year is that there are no V's in it. In every Latin word that should have a V, they've replaced it with the letter U. Now, I know why they do this. It's for pronunciation reasons. In Latin, the letter V isn't pronounced V, it's pronounced W. So it really makes more sense to have it as a U. But I've had several years of Latin already, and all my other books have used the letter V. So in this new book, there is vocabulary that I know but don't recognize, because not only does it have a different letter, it has a different color. The letter U is a golden honey brown, while the letter V, just like the L in Lauren, is purple. Now, it's not like V and U are vastly different shapes. One is just a little more pointed than the other, but they are vastly different colors, which is going to make it a lot harder for me to get used to than it otherwise would have. So, long stories short, synesthesia is awesome and beautiful, except for when it confuses the heck out of you. If you have a form of synesthesia, please tell me in the comments below and tell me what kind it is, because I love talking about this and hearing about other people's experiences of it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going to do my absolute best to keep making videos every week while I'm at school. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later, lovely person.